One of the aspects of philosophy that's become very popular these days, as far as leading a good life is concerned, is Stoicism. Could you tell us a little bit about what Stoicism actually is, and whether you feel that it does offer lay people a good guide to a good life?
Stoicism is a philosophy tradition that goes back to the Roman times as a formal school, and it's a tradition that's focused on. It's really best summed up by what I think it's Niebuhr in the 20th century, who formulated the Serenity Prayer, which was God, give me the courage to change the things I can, and the serenity to accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that actually encapsulates what Stoicism is about. It's about seeking the wisdom to know the difference between what you can change and what you can't, and to come to reconcile yourself to what can't be changed, and to not indulge emotions that will ultimately be futile because you can't change the circumstance. It's about living as rationally in harmony with reality as you can. So it's a matter of training your emotions to accept realities that are inflexible, to not spend on a futile emotional energy on those things. That's really what I think to be the core insight of Stoicism. And so it's really about a habit of meditating on what's the rational response in every situation, and to prioritize virtue, of course, to prioritize reason, to understand the bad things that happen within the context that's most constructive, right? So sometimes you read the Stoics and they can tend a little bit towards rationalization, right? That's one of the it's like a coping mechanism for harsh truths is to find the positive in them, or to whatever method of resigning you can. Now, to me, the Stoics are insightful in some ways and not helpful to me in other ways. So I'm not by any means a devout Stoic or a dogmatic Stoic or a doctrinaire Stoic. But what the Stoic approach to things taught me, when I was reading the Stoics and internalizing them, what's been most valuable to me has been sort of the analysis of every emotional response. And to think about every emotional response and to think through what's the most rational way to feel here and what's the most rational thing to do here. I like one simple thing, for example, very simple thing is, once, missing my bus and then asking myself, was there some reason that this was my fault? And if it wasn't, like letting go of the emotion, that negativity about kicking myself. And if it was my fault, instead of beating myself up, thinking in terms constructively of how do I prepare to not do that next time, right? In other words, instead of getting overwhelmed by an emotion, analyze, is there anything I could have done? And if you realize there's nothing you could have done, letting go of that anxiety as though it was somehow your fault. And if it was something your fault, then thinking through next time, how do I avoid this emotion in the future? Now, there's that constructive approach to your emotions. Another thing is just letting go of things you can't have. Just not spending emotional energy on things you can't have. Once you realize you can't have it, it's over, and we move forward, and you only focus on what's available. And this sort of thinking for me, and I know we've talked about this before, but I wrote an article in 2013 where I'd taken an approach to things where I said, and I saw it as inspired by the Stoics, where I took what I called a no expectations
I read this article and I found it. I thought it was very powerful, and I wrote down actually one of the a little passage towards the end, just that section. Feel your helplessness without confusing it with hopelessness. You don't have to be all powerful to be powerful. I was just struck. I mean, you write beautifully, and it's well worth people diving into your blog to get a sense of the way that you write and the issues that you address. But if you'd just like to go into that that aspect of expectations a little bit more deeply, that would be great.
Yeah, because it's this cliche, and this is the thing about wisdom. Most of it sounds cliche because it's well known, right? Wisdom is not something you need to go seek out a philosopher to find. You can find it everywhere. But the problem with it is internalizing it, right? Most of the wise sayings are cliches, but when they strike you, when you internalize them, when they hit you at the right moment, the right time, they become life-changing truths.